This can be a challenging gospel because it says that, the necessariness for us to pray without becoming weary, and then pretty much using a parable to say, keep bugging God, basically. Like if a person who doesn't even respect any human being and is not afraid of God, basically meaning the person doesn't believe in God at all, practically an atheist, this judge, and this woman just kept coming to him over and over and over again. At some point, all of us has experienced that at some point, right? Either somebody keeps bugging us about something. Parents, you definitely experience this, right? Kids are like, Mom, Mom, Mom. And you're like, what? In a way, it's almost as if Jesus is saying we need to be like that with God, right? But as adults, we don't want to be like that nagging person, right? I would say most of us probably have the disposition of like, if we were to approach God, we'd be like, hey, don't know if you remember me, but if you're not busy, I know you're pretty busy, but if you have a chance, maybe, if it's not too much trouble, then maybe you could answer a prayer possibly that I have, if it's okay with you. But if not, that's okay. I'll still talk to you. I'll still go to Mass on Sunday. But if you got the time, right? How many of us kind of sound like that? Right? Probably most of us. And I know it's most people because that's how most people approach a priest. Hey, I know you're busy, but maybe, whatever it is. Sometimes I'm just like, just spit it out. Right? And that's what God wants. Just spit it out. Yeah, bug him. Bug the crap out of him. Yeah, he wants that. He's not too busy. He's never too busy. You know how I know God's never too busy? Because he's the author of time. So he could slow it down, stop it, fast forward it. He's got time. He makes it his own. And so he has time to hear every one of our prayers, no matter how small or how big we see them to be. He wants us to nag him. But the problem is, again, with us. We don't like to nag. We don't like it when people nag us. So naturally, we assume that God doesn't like it either. And so what happens is we end up growing weary to the point where I've been praying for this for 3 days and nothing's happened yet. Or maybe a week or a month. And so we end up maybe pushing away, getting the idea that he's not listening to us or hearing us. And so what do? We pull back on our own prayer, maybe even fall into a habit of not praying for a while, or maybe just praying when something else happens and we need something. But that's exactly what Satan wants. Satan wants us to treat God like a convenience store clerk. We only go when we need something. And what do? We say, this is what I need. Here's all the details. I don't need a receipt. But yet, that kind of prayer is exactly what we are not to do. And so what does it mean to not grow weary, not become weary, but to be consistent? Right? We think that bugging him, being annoying, but no, we're being consistent in what we desire. Now, what does this look like? This doesn't always have to be for us. The consistency doesn't always have to be for us. We see in the first reading in the Old Testament, Moses would probably be like most of us, to where we would pray and then we would stop and go about our day. But when we look at Moses raising his hands, interceding for the entire battlefield, as soon as his hands came down, what happened, right? They started losing. And so his hands go back up, more intercession, to the point where he needed help. He needed a seat. He needed someone to hold up his arms. But he stayed consistent, and that consistency won the battle. And so for us, the key to building a good, solid prayer life is first to remain consistent. And a good way to remain consistent is have a set time and day or days where you're going to spend that time in prayer, right? It's pretty easy with other things, right? It's really easy with homework, right? To set that time aside, maybe some more than others, right? Because if I don't get this done, that ain't good. I'll have to take this class over again and pay more money. Nobody wants to do that, right? So there's room for that. Study. There's always room for Netflix for some reason. There's always room for that, right? There's always room for that. Just one episode. Then it's 2 or 3 before you know it. Always seems to be room for that. But yet the real struggle seems to be it's much harder to sit down and share our hearts, our minds with the Lord. Why? Because it requires a completely different mindset. It requires to go against what our biology has been unknowingly rewired for, which is that excitement. Oh, look at this action show. Something's happening. Ding, somebody's messaging me. Messaging back. All right, put that down. Ding, there's another one. Oh, I got to get to work. I got like 10 minutes. I got to hurry up. I got to get off work. Oh, there's traffic. Why is there all this traffic? Oh, look at that billboard or that billboard. We're always on the go. And so when we sit down by ourselves, it becomes that much harder because the mind becomes louder. And not too many of us like what goes on inside our minds, right? If we did, the world would be a lot quieter. But we don't. And so we get all restless and we cut it short. And we don't see any fruit many times. We don't see the benefit. And so it becomes that much harder. And so in reality, this gospel is difficult because he's saying the necessariness for them to pray always without becoming weary. But the problem is in our day is we start out in weariness. There's no becoming weary. We come to prayer already weary. And so now it's a matter of coming out of that weariness. And when it's hard and difficult, it means there's 2 things. One, I haven't thought about the reality that one day I could go to heaven. And 2, I haven't spent time thinking about the reality that more than anything else, at some point, I'm going to die. And then that reality of what heaven may be like will no longer become some thought amongst other thoughts, but it will become a reality. I recently got this coffee cup. It's my favorite now. It says, it's like a little Jesus on it. I mean, not a little Jesus, it's Jesus. It's like an adult. And it says, do you know that you also will die? I like it because it reminds me that I'm going to die, right? And sometimes I need that when drinking coffee. And I'm pretty sure there's times in your day where you're at work and you've thought of that. Like, oh man. But it's just kind of floating away. It's just like a passing thought. But to truly enter into the meditation of what is to come will really move your heart in a way that will maybe keep your knees on the floor or your butt in the seat to really spend some time with Him and share what's going on. The good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful. But the thing is, it's that starting point, which is hard for everybody. If starting wasn't hard, the gyms would be filled all the time, right? If starting wasn't hard, there wouldn't be 50 million diet foods you can buy online that will just deliver to your door. Starting is the hardest part. But for us, it's difficult because we've already become weary. And so let us ask Him for the courage to sift through the weariness and hold fast to what He has in store for us. And then heaven will slowly unfold in a more beautiful way. And death won't seem so terrifying. and you'll be more prepared for it, which is a huge difference when it comes to the end of life. And so take some time. Again, set some time aside. Stick to it. Give it 3 months. If you don't see any fruit whatsoever, then come and see me, and I can give you a little boost. Because our life is not meant for here. It's meant for eternity. And it's time to face it and embrace it and start that conversation.